Hi, good morning. Welcome to the third annual California College Affordability Summit. My name is Christiane Hernandez, and I will be your moderator tech for this breakout session. I'm here to provide virtual support for both you and the presenters during this presentation. All attendees have been muted, so we ask that you put your questions in the chat or at the end of the presentation if time allows. You can also raise your hand on the icon and we will be happy to unmute you to ask your question. Should you have any questions or need assistance with the Zoom interface, you can use the chat icon on the toolbar at the bottom of your screen, search for my name and send a direct private message to me. I will do my best to provide assistance to resolve your concern. And now it is my pleasure to introduce you to your presenters for this session titled Financial Aid Offer Review, Why It's Important and How to Do It with uAspire and Moneythink, presented by Hannah Smith and Brendan Williams.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's great to connect with you. I know that it's early in the morning and I'm excited to spend some time with you all today talking a little bit about college enrollment decisions. So I'm going to just talk a little bit about who we are. So my name is Hannah Smith. I'm the Director of Educational Partnerships here with Moneythink. Prior to this position, I was with CCGI working on californiacolleges.edu. So I've spent many years in the college access space, and I'll kick it over to you, Brendan, to introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brendan Williams. I'm the Senior Director of Consulting at uAspire. And I've been at uAspire for 10 years and worked in a variety of roles, from advising, training, to building internal training content. Excited to talk about working with students and helping them decipher their financial aid offers today.
So one thing just in terms of process, we're going to pause at the end and we're going to leave about 10 minutes for questions, but you're welcome to chat questions using the Q&A feature throughout. We have a colleague, Sarah O'Hearn, who's here and who will be happy to field any of those questions throughout the presentation. And then any questions that, we may also pause throughout to sort of surface some of those that we think would be good learning for the whole group. So I'm just going to go over sort of a quick agenda for the day. We're going to talk a little bit about who we are, our organizations. We're going to talk a little bit about the college affordability problem. So why is this period that we're in right now around college enrollment such an important pivotal time? We're going to look at some sample award letters. So we're going to dive a little bit into sort of what a solid award letter would look like, and then some problematic award letters and what that means for students and families. And then we're going to talk about 2 free tools that you can use in this period to compare and determine enrollment decisions based on some of these financial aid award letter decisions that y'all are making right now with students. And then we'll close it out. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about who we are, and then I'll hand it off to Brendan to share a little bit more about uAspire. So with a mission to leverage our education technology for good, so Moneythink is a student-centered nonprofit, and we really have combined the first automated college affordability tool with decades of mentoring experience. So we've been mentoring students for about 14 years and coaching them directly on these questions of financial literacy and college affordability. And we're really aimed at helping traditionally underserved and first-gen students make that informed, personalized college enrollment decision.
And uAspire is a national nonprofit focused completely on college affordability. And so our hope is that all students have the financial information and resources necessary to find their way to and through college. And we do that in 3 different ways. And so, Hannah, if we could go to that next slide. We advise students directly, whether it's in person, one-on-one, or via text. And we do that in Massachusetts, New York, and in California, mainly in the Bay Area. We train school counselors and program staff, and so we train folks across the country on topics of college affordability, and it ranges from how to complete the FAFSA to reviewing financial aid offers and summer steps for successfully enrolling in college and making sure counselors are prepared to serve students. And then we advance policy and systems change, and that's really where my role comes into in sort of that systems change piece. But we try and impact both higher ed, state, and federal leaders to make this process easier for students and try and remove some of that red tape and some of the hurdles in the process. And so those are our 3 impact models that we work with to try and really tackle the college affordability problem in this country. And then here are just some stats that really highlight the problem. I mean, as we all are probably well aware, the Pell Grant is covering less and less these days. Granted, a $400 increase in the Pell Grant recently. Hooray to that, but I'm still not anywhere near covering the amount of college costs it used to cover. Also, as you see in the news, debt has a large impact on the choices that we can make post-college. And so really thinking through the debt problem. And then of course, financial aid is complex. There's a lot of forms to fill out. There's a lot of additional steps that for many folks, it's their first time seeing this problem and trying to navigate this when they are going through the financial aid process. And for students who are coming right from high school, they are 18 years old trying to tackle these complex processes. And the support isn't there. There's not enough school counselors to provide the necessary support for students across the country. And then why we're focusing on financial aid offers today, and why I think uAspire and Moneythink have taken this route to try and support students with these issues. A report that we wrote with New America, was that 4 years ago? Time seems to have flown by these days. Really highlighted why financial aid offers are so confusing. And so I wanted to just highlight a few of the stats that we saw in the report when we reviewed over 500 aid offers from colleges across the country. There were 136 unique terms for unsubsidized direct loan, and some of those didn't include the word loan on the financial aid offer. It might be said unsub direct, and that's it. 30% didn't include cost information on the financial aid offer, meaning they were presenting a student with, this is a grant or scholarship of $20,000, but not knowing where that cost is starting from really limits your ability to interpret what that actually means. 70% grouped all financial aid together, meaning loans, work study, and grants and scholarships were all grouped together in the same portion of the aid offer. And it was up to the student to interpret which one was which. And the last one, and I think probably the most alarming one for me, is there were 23 different ways of calculating the remaining costs. So how much does that student owe after financial aid is applied? We found 23 different ways that colleges calculated that cost across those 500 financial aid offers. And so financial aid offers are confusing, and we're going to get into sort of the goals of financial aid offer review, how to approach that, and 2 tools that can hopefully make this a little bit less confusing for students and families.
Yeah, and so one of the things we also want to highlight is that we know that these disparities have consequences, right? They don't affect all students the same way. So what this means is that about 14% of Black adults and 11% of Hispanic adults hold a bachelor's degree compared with 24% of white adults. So one of the things that the research has shown is that students tend to stop out based on some of these financial factors, right? And a lot of students are actually accruing tens of thousands of dollars in debt and never actually leaving with a degree. So these are the kinds of disparities that we really want to address in both the sort of development of some of our programs and our products, and make sure that we're really thinking about that end user and really making sure that we're closing some of those equity and access gaps that affect students very differently. We also know that minorities borrowed at an alarmingly high rate of about 87% to fund their education compared to about 60% of white students. So again, we really just want to highlight that this is not an equal playing field, and that we know that certain students are borrowing at a much higher rate. So making sure that students, families, educators have really clear, easy to interpret data as students are making this really important decision around enrollment is crucial. And especially at this time right now, right? It's the end of April. These are the conversations that are happening for young people at home and in school. And we really want to make sure that we can streamline a process that almost seems confusing, like by design, right? So I'm going to kind of talk a little bit now about some of the award letters that are out there. So let's go into some examples, and we'll also talk a little bit about some things to keep in mind. So as you can see from this letter, there's a couple of different things I want to highlight. There are the direct costs, which are those costs that are paid directly to the college, like tuition and fees. So those on this letter will be $40,900 and $4,000. So then they have the indirect costs. This will be about $23,633. These are things like room, board, personal expenses, books, transportation, etc. So this means that the total cost to attend will be $64,537. So this letter is incredibly problematic, right? For a lot of reasons. It presents that number, $64,537, as the total aid awarded, which is very misleading, right, for a student, because the bulk of that aid is actually unsubsidized student loans and Parent Plus loans, which are not guaranteed by any means and are often high interest, that interest beginning to accrue on day one, as opposed to when the student finishes college. So in addition, one of the things that's really problematic about this letter is that the estimated amount due is misleading, because students will inevitably have expenses related to housing and transportation. So the math is really hard to assess. The costs are never totaled. The total aid award is incredibly misleading, and it's actually like misinformation in a lot of ways. And the estimated amount due leaves out really important costs like campus housing and other food costs, which we know all students are going to have. So as you can see, this is incredibly confusing. It often leads to students taking on huge debt and can really result in sort of crippling outcomes in terms of post-secondary completion. But Brendan, I want to pause. Anything else you want to call out about this letter that I didn't touch on?
No, I think you've covered a lot of my issues and flags with this financial aid offer, Hannah.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to make sure we were capturing the whole picture. So now let's look at a different letter, right? So let's look at what a letter to understand that's like super easy, very clear. And we really would hope a lot more colleges would sort of structure their letters in this way. So they're outlining actual costs and the awards. They also separate work study and loans. So one of the key things to distinguish here is that, you know, this is not free money, right? Work study is contingent upon you both securing a work study placement and then working those amount of hours throughout the semester. And loans, you know, these are not free money that students won't have to pay back, right? So we really want to make sure that in this letter, they let you know that you may need to take additional steps to receive some of the funds that are listed on your letter. So they define the total cost of attendance. It's super easy to understand. It's bucketing that aid by type, right? You can clearly see sort of your grants and scholarships and then your loan options. It also says that next steps are clear. So at the bottom there, you can see that they're calling out for students like additional steps may be required to receive your financial aid awards. So it's a very clear, easy to understand letter. And again, every school does a very different thing around this. So we just want to highlight again back to that problem and sort of like, why is this such a challenge for families and students at this time? Every award letter is different. To Brendan's point, they're using lots of different terms interchangeably. This creates a situation where depending on the school that you've applied to, depending on the letter that you've now got to do a translation process that can be incredibly confusing. And then for educators on the ground, like I have a background in counseling, often you're not given some of this training in your program, right? Depending on the courses that you've taken, some of the sort of professional development that you've sought out and on the job learning, some of this may be very new to you if you're an advisor or a counselor. So we really are again aimed at sort of streamlining and making this process a little bit easier. And I just want to also, before we kind of shift into talking more about some of the tools and how they can help you, I want to ground us in sort of the yearly cycle for students, right? So ideally, as early as the middle school grades, hopefully students are beginning to do some of that college search, right? So they're searching for colleges that meet their needs. They're exploring majors. Those sort of middle school and early high school years should really be about exploration and about searching for colleges that are a good fit for you. Then in your senior year, you're launching those college applications. So once they've explored, they should submit all of those relevant college applications, considering priority deadlines where those are applicable. Once they've got those in, they move in the spring to financial aid, right? So they're submitting the FAFSA, they're submitting the CADA, they're completing financial aid verification processes. And the last step, which is sort of where we are right now in the school year, and I know that y'all are steeping in this in many ways, is the plan to pay. So making sure that families and students are really looking at those award letters thoughtfully and thinking about all of the fit factors that have come into play up till now, right? Diversity, graduation rates, sort of campus structure and support services, and then taking that sort of culminating letter and factoring that into the conversation so that college affordability is really centered as a core part of how parents and families and students are making decisions about where students should enroll. So again, just want to pause. I know we've said a lot. Feel free to use the Q&A feature to sort of ask questions. We're happy to sort of manage those throughout. And I'm going to pass it off to you, Brendan, to talk a little bit more about the college cost calculator.
All right. And so one of the key things I wanted to start with, and obviously I wish we had presented this a few months earlier, is sort of how to build financial aid offer review into practice. One of the key things is to start early. And I know there's a lot going on, but we've seen financial aid offers with the FAFSA moving up to October 1st a bunch of years ago. I'm going to show how long I've been doing this if I keep talking like that. But we've seen financial aid offers come as early as November. And so students are now receiving financial aid offers over a span of 5 or 6 months. And so it's really important to not just wait until April and say, all right, let's talk about financial aid offers. It's trying to get it into that conversation earlier. Also building non-counseling staff buy-in. Well, you may be the only one directly talking to students about making sure that they have their financial aid offers and they're reviewing and understanding their costs. There are other people the student may be talking to in the school. They may have other mentors that they were discussing this with. And it's so important for everyone to be on the same page in regards to the importance of waiting to make a decision before you know what the cost is. One of the things I always tell students is like, you wouldn't buy a house or buy a car without knowing the cost. And they were like, no, we'd never do that. And I was like, well, why would you do that with your college education that could cost as much or even more than that? And I think that really helps strike a balance of the importance of knowing a cost before making such a large financial decision. It also can be helpful to track and share common college timelines. And so if you know a lot of your students in your school have applied to and been accepted to certain colleges, knowing when those financial aid offers get distributed, you can sort of set up a time to review those. Or if a student hasn't received one, it's a good flag to know maybe they need to do some follow-up with that college. And then in terms of promoting financial aid offer review, some practices we've seen really help. One is making it a graduation requirement. So we've seen high schools say, in order to receive your diploma, you need to have reviewed at least one financial aid offer if you're planning to pursue a post-secondary option that has a financial aid offer component. Incentivizing with a free prom ticket or other types of raffle prizes. Creating family decision events where families come in and talk about the financial aid at each of the college options a student has. And then incorporating into classroom lessons. And so we've seen math classes incorporate reviewing the financial aid offer into the classroom lesson. Or if there is a financial literacy class, incorporating the financial aid offer review into there. And so these are 4 things that we've seen work at the high school level in terms of getting the financial aid offers reviewed so students understand the costs of each of their potential college decisions. So we are going to talk about the College Cost Calculator, which is the tool uAspire has on its website. And through some of the College Cost Calculator review, I'll talk about some of our best practices in terms of what to cover when we review financial aid offers with a student, and some of the things that that we really prioritize. And then in terms of setting students up for success, we do have a financial aid timeline here. And so we make sure financial aid offer review is top of mind throughout the college affordability convo. And so from the beginning, we present a financial aid timeline and say, these are all the different steps that we have to take. And financial aid offer review is a part of that. In the PowerPoint, this is a clickable link, so you'll have access to the uAspire financial aid timeline. Also, educating about college costs and encouraging the use of net price calculators and college scorecard can be helpful in allowing students to see the impact that financial aid can have on the cost of college. And then encouraging a mindset of celebrate, then decide. So celebrating when students get accepted, but encouraging them to wait to decide where they're going to attend until after they receive and review their financial aid offers, which can be a little bit of a mindset shift, and which is really important to get other staff buy-in in terms of pushing that mindset at your school. And so the goals of aid offer review at uAspire are threefold. And so we want the student to leave and understand the short and long-term costs associated with each college. And so that means, what do I have to pay today? And if I am borrowing loans, what will I have to pay after graduation? We also want them to understand a few key terms associated with financial aid offers, because odds are we might not be there next year or the year after or the year after that for interpreting their financial aid. And we want them to have a clear understanding of their next steps. So what do I have to do after the financial aid offer? Because just like the financial aid process doesn't end at the FAFSA, it doesn't end at the financial aid offer either. And so the College Cost Calculator is a free online tool for comparing financial aid offers. You can find it at uaspire.org/calculator. And we encourage you to use that. And so we're going to dive into some of the key elements of that tool before I hand it back off to Hannah to talk about Decided. So Hannah, and my apologies for these being animated. I was unaware of these slides being animated, but so in terms of the College Cost Calculator, there's help text and images that help guide the student to enter the information from their financial aid offer. There's data validation to reduce entry mistakes, such as they can't enter a Pell Grant over a certain amount. It'll be flagged as an error. We have student accounts, which students can access anytime. They can update their financial aid offers. which is really helpful for when students receive a financial aid offer in November, and then they receive one in February, and then they receive one in March. It's being able to go back and add those financial aid offers so that they can compare them. And then we do have a financial terms dictionary. We have tips, next steps, and links to additional resources within the college cost calculator. And so what this does is it allows the students to easily and accurately compare their aid offers. And so making sure that the calculation that they're seeing for how much they owe is the same across the colleges. It provides a learning opportunity by asking the students to enter in their financial aid offers. And so if there are terms that are confusing, it allows them to voice that and say, I looked through this. I don't really know what this is, where you can provide that support. And it creates a takeaway document. And so there's a downloadable PDF that they can use to talk about college costs at home with their families and other stakeholders. And then lastly, it really starts the conversation about indirect expenses and long-term debt. There's a bigger conversation to be had after using the college cost calculator, but we think it's a good place to start and then build from there. And so here's just an example of some of the help text you might see if you were to log in, and some of the tips. And we tried to build this around, if I was sitting next to a student after being trained by uAspire, these are the tips and conversations I would have with that student. And so it resembles an advising conversation that we would have in person with a student. And so I skipped the part of entering the financial aid offers, which I think is fine. And so this is the summary page a student would see after entering their financial aid offers. It can hold as many financial aid offers as the student wants to enter. And it can be translated into Chinese, Spanish, and Vietnamese. And we're in the process of adding Haitian Creole and Arabic to this summary page. And it can be downloaded as a PDF in any of the languages listed. We found this to be an important piece because when talking to students, we found that they were struggling to translate financial aid terms that they'd never heard before into languages that were spoken at home. And so we heard from students that it would really be helpful if we had these professionally translated so that they could use these when talking with their families and the burden wasn't put on them to translate this information. It also separates different categories. And so an example from the aid offer previously reviewed, work study and Parent Plus loans are separated out from the calculation because at this point in time, that money's not readily available, and Plus loans is a larger conversation to be had at home. And the two calculations we use are estimated bill before loans and estimated bill after loans. And so estimated bill before loans is direct costs minus grants, scholarships, and waivers. And as you might guess, estimated bill after loans is if you were to subtract loans from that calculation. And then as you scroll down on the summary page, it does go into some indirect expense calculations. We do at uAspire, we really focus on what the estimated bill will be. And then we say, once you know you can afford that estimated bill, let's talk about the indirect expenses. Because talking about those as a lump sum, it can be very difficult from what do I owe the college versus what are some more variable costs that I have. In addition, there is a loan calculation that looks at the student loans listed on the financial aid offer. It calculates that over however many years the student says they're going to take to graduate, and then breaks that down into the monthly cost. What we found when working with students is if you tell a student there's going to be $33,000 in debt after you graduate, they're like, okay. Same way I would react. What does that actually mean? And so breaking it down to that monthly cost really helps students visualize what that actually means for their month-to-month expenses, and is a much easier thing to visualize. So instead of $33,000 in debt, you could say, after you graduate, you have to pay $350 a month for the next 10 years. And that really resonates a lot more with students when we've worked with them. And then the last thing I will cover before pointing out some resources is on every piece, there's this next steps after reviewing the financial aid offer. It goes through some important next steps a student should take. This also gets translated into the different languages so that family can also be aware of these next steps that they may need to take after reviewing and deciding what college they're planning to attend. And so some important things to keep in mind when talking with students, and questions that actually yesterday when I was working with students that I talked with them about, has to do with, and Hannah, if we could go forward, just as I click it 3 times and we can get all those bubbles up there. Sort of like, what are they planning to pursue? What type of degree? When thinking about the cost of college, not just thinking about 1 year, but however many years it's going to take you to graduate. For me, it took me 5 years. And so I always let students know, like, it's perfectly normal for it to take more than 4 years. And so thinking about what those costs mean. And then, of course, thinking about the debt upon graduation and what that looks like, and if that feels okay, and really talking through their feelings about debt and what their different options are. There is another handout here called Next Steps After the Financial Aid Offer Checklist, which goes through some steps and is really directed for students to use after reviewing their financial aid offer. And so with that, I'll leave you with this. There are many resources on the uAspire website that we encourage you to use. There is, of course, the College Cost Calculator. Whether you're using the College Cost Calculator or another tool, what I really care about and what uAspire really cares about is that we are reviewing financial aid offers with students, and they are making their college decisions with financially informed information, with accurate calculations. And whether or not the student is choosing to go through the most affordable option or not, what we want them to do is know the cost of the decision that they're making. 2 other supports we offer. We have financial aid walkthroughs throughout the year. They're free for anyone to attend. And we do offer one-on-one support with uAspire advisors. It's first come, first serve, but usually there are some spots available. We do that once a month. And so we encourage you to come find us at uaspire.org and check out some of the resources we have available. And with that, I'll hand it off to Hannah.
Thanks, Brendan. Well, my slides are not animated, so I apologize, but that was actually a really fun surprise. I always love an animated slide. Thanks so much, Brendan, for just sharing more about the College Cost Calculator and all of the really awesome, robust resources y'all provide to students and educators. I'm going to talk a little bit now about another free tool that you can use to compare college financial aid award letters and really kind of choose confidently. So essentially Moneythink, which I talked a little bit before, we're the nonprofit that manages Decided, which is the free web app that students and advisors can use to search for colleges and also support students in understanding the net cost. So I'm going to talk a little bit about sort of each of them independently. So we have Decided for students. So students can search, filter, compare, favorite, and order their four-year college list. So in essence, this tool is really designed for students to begin searching colleges as early as the 9th grade. They can go in there, they can save their colleges to their college list. And really, again, as I mentioned before, sort of set that foundation around exploration. And so this is both a mobile and a desktop friendly web page. So what students can essentially do is compare each school against important fit factors. So some of the fit factors are graduation rates, diversity. So students can actually enter both their zip code and their ethnicity or race, and it will give them customized data based on that. So it'll tell them this many percentage of students at this school is Hispanic, or this is the graduation rate for Hispanic students at this school if they've entered their ethnicity as Hispanic. So again, it really is that kind of customized opportunity for a young person to consider all of the different choices when they're selecting their college. And one piece of that is the college affordability. So this is also the place where they will review and upload those financial aid award letters. They'll get those estimated costs and really be able to open up that discussion around affordability. Lastly, students can also confirm enrollment status. So this is where a student could look at their award letter, then go into the Decided page and actually say which college they're enrolling in. So again, the goal of the tool is really to help students make that really important decision once they've gotten those financial aid award letters. So they upload those, really taking a screenshot. So they can just take a screenshot directly on their phone or on their Chromebook, and they can upload that screenshot directly into the Decided platform. When they do that, it allows them to essentially see a really clear snapshot of the affordability for that school. So what you can see on this page is multiple fit factors, right? We highlight the affordability at the top. Students will see either green, orange, or red. So green means this is an affordable college. This is a school where you're getting, for example, this school, you can see the students getting $32,000 out of $36,000 covered. They're going to have to take out about $4,000 in loans or do some work study or a combination thereof. So we deem that as an affordable option. You can see that we also pull apart, as I mentioned before, the college bill, which is those direct costs around tuition and fees, and then some of those life budget pieces, which are those more sort of indirect costs, such as books and transportation. So students will see orange at the top there, which is sort of medium affordability. If the school is sort of in the middle there, right? So for this student, you can see that about $12,000 of $26,000 is covered. This, for this last example, is going to mean them taking out about $10,000 in loans. So we've deemed that a somewhat affordable school. You'll see it's not on this example here, but schools that are deemed not affordable will show up in red. And that will be a sort of the school that's like not affordable at the top. It very clearly is with color-coded indicators telling students the affordability for each of those schools based on the information that we have essentially pulled from that screenshot that they uploaded of their award letter. So one of the other things that's really important to highlight is they can sort of drag and drop these schools in order of preference. So students can favorite their favorite school. This student, for example, has favorited UC Irvine. You can see that there's the stars sort of highlighted at the top. They can order these and organize them by favorites. They can also sort of shuffle them around. And then they can also dig deeper into other fit factors. So college affordability is one piece of it, and we want them to kind of expand and broaden that net, right? Because there are so many things that go into making this enrollment decision. So some of the things that students can see there is they can actually save majors specifically for that school. They can see the graduation rate. They can see the diversity at that school, the campus structure. So is it urban, rural? They can also see the average median earnings 6 years after beginning. So the sort of within a year or two of graduating, you can see the median national earnings for attending that school. So it allows students to really complicate the question of sort of what is the best school for me, taking into account all of these things that we know sort of informally students are talking about with their parents, their families, their counselors and advisors. The other thing I want to highlight is that we also have a set of guides on every page. So you can see on the bottom right here, we have a set of guides that's going to sort of help students with some of the financial literacy piece of it at every step of the way. So understanding your life budget, understanding loans. We have a guide on scholarships. So it's really, again, meant to sort of bolster and supplement some of their financial aid knowledge and give them a language to move forward with as they make these really important decisions. So the decision of where to go to college is one of the most impactful, as Brendan said, right, financial decisions that a student will make. So we decided to really help students make those informed decisions about their future and really identify what's affordable and what's not. So in this instance, you can actually see, this is an example of a student who saved Texas A&M as their first school, right? You can see that they've been given a full ride to UCLA. So this, as an advisor or a counselor, as a parent, or even just as a friend, right, can open up a really important conversation about affordability and really say to the student, well, why is Texas A&M your first choice? Let's talk it out. Let's unpack it, because maybe that is the best choice for you, but we want to make sure that we're taking this question of affordability into account, and in addition to all of the other sort of exploration and research that you've done as it relates to this school. So I want to just highlight one of our student sort of testimonials. So Decided tells you how much aid you're getting, how much you're paying, and how affordable it is going to be. So this is a student that we worked with who went off to SF State a couple of years ago and really kind of highlights what we're trying to do, right? We really want to simplify this for students, and we want to make sure that this really important decision is not hinged on their ability to interpret a really complicated letter, especially if they're low income or first gen, and they don't have a ton of resources to sort of do this really, really complicated interpretation, translation, and analysis. So I want to shift gears a little bit. So that's Decided for students. We also have Decided for advisors. So this is our Decided dashboard for advisors. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what it allows you as an advisor or a counselor working with students. So the dashboard will keep you up to date on all of your students' progress on the road to college. So you'll get a snapshot of which schools they're interested in, what types of awards they've received, and how affordable their options are. So we're really aimed at Moneythink at empowering counselors and advisors to have the right conversation at the right time with the right student. And as someone who's worked in schools plenty and had to sort of do some of this outreach and targeted outreach to identify the right intervention for a student, it's really helpful to have that data at your fingertips. So what you can see on the screenshot here is that this is what the advisor dashboard looks like. It's going to give you a glimpse of all of your students. It's going to show you how many letters they've uploaded. You can dig into their letters and actually print or view them, their actual award letter that they've been given. You can also see the affordability rating that we have given those schools. So for example, this is a really powerful way to say as an advisor, okay, let me identify all of my students who have only saved not affordable colleges, right? So it's an opportunity to have a customized intervention and discussion with that student to say, I see that all the schools that you've saved are deemed not affordable. Let's talk a little bit more about this and see what makes the most sense for you. So it allows you to really deepen support on those college enrollment decisions, right? It allows you to have that timely conversation because this data is real time. Students are entering and using it during the financial aid award letter season, as well as outside of that, to search for colleges and save them. And it's really making sure that they're having those truly informed post-secondary discussions, both with you and with their families at home. A lot of this is also about just saving administrative time, right? So we want to make sure that counselors, advisors, that you're not doing some of this in an Excel spreadsheet or in a file cabinet, right? I know I've done that plenty, right? You have a lot of things in a file cabinet or on an Excel spreadsheet that only you can view, only you can update, and it's super manual entry. So we really wanted to remove some of that. You can connect directly to your caseload of students. There's super stringent user permissions to make sure that the right advisor is looking at the right students. And this allows you to sort of save a lot of hours, right? And in terms of administrative entry, and really reflect the story of sort of what your students are working on right now. So again, it also gives you that access to the data at the individual and then the program-wide level. So whether you're a college access or a school district, it allows you to have those reports and insights into where your students are on their college enrollment journey. So there's two different reports that are available, and there's sort of two different ways that you can pull this. So as I mentioned before, you can look at a list of all of your students. You can also download two separate reports. One of them is a student summary list. So this is going to give you sort of the student name, the profile. You can download these as a CSV, filter them, sort them, share them, do whatever you need to do to sort of make sense. And then there's also the college detail list. So this is where each college that's added by a student will have full financial aid details of estimated costs and any award results. And so these two reports really allow you to look at your students at the aggregate, allow you to sort of look at your specific caseload, whether you're alpha, or whether you're working in a college access org and you have a specific cohort that you're working with. It allows you to really customize your discussion with a student, and it allows every adult to see the same thing, which I think is really powerful, right? Making sure that there's one place for the parent, for the student, and for the adult educator at the school or the after school program, for example, to all see the same data and have the same discussion with the student in this very short window of time, right? So I think as Brendan mentioned, like it's a very big decision and often students are making it within a couple of weeks. So as much intentionality and clarity that we can bring, we want to make sure that we're providing that. So again, just want to highlight with a sort of advisor testimonial. So this is one of the college and career success managers at Richmond Promise. So Cynthia said, in a time where money can be a burden, the platform decided provides a transparent visual breakdown of the costs students are expected to pay out of pocket in loans and more. This is what we need our students to know, and this is what will help them be financially clear on their investment. So again, our hope is really to bring that clarity so that you can have the right conversation with the right student. And in some ways, it's really powerful to have a tool to say something that you as a counselor or advisor want to say, but you're trying to build this relationship with the student, right? So it takes the onus off the counselor to say this is not an affordable option and really puts it on the tool to say, well, let's look at this together. Let's talk about it because maybe it is the right choice for you, but let's unpack that a little bit further and complicate it. So I wanted to share that we do have a bunch of resources. As I mentioned, we have our guides. These are our student guides that focus on, financial aid awards, how to write an appeal. We also do, any organization that wants to set up an account, any individual advisor, we offer very customized trainings. We're happy to connect with you, both to sort of learn more about what you need, get you set up with the right accounts, and then provide you training on the tools so that you feel really confident rolling this out with students, both in terms of some of the content, right, around college affordability, the language, and also DecideEd, the tool. So I believe Sarah's going to share some resources in the chat in just a minute. Related to the guides, but also related to how you can sort of get started on an account for free right now. So you can sign up for either an advisor account or a student account, and really encourage you to use this. And as Brendan mentioned, I know we're in the crunch time now, but check it out, see how it could support your work, and definitely wishing you all the best in the next few weeks as you work with students to close out this very important decision. So I'm going to pause now. I know that we've covered a lot here today. Any questions, Sarah, that we should surface for the whole group?
I'm just answering a couple questions in the chat. And one of the questions was, do I have to pay as an advisor? And I want to reiterate that it's free. It's free for students. It's free for advisors. And then the other question that I'm just answering from B is, about our data source for the college information. We do pull that from iPads, so it is, often 1 or 2 years out of date. However, we're able to interpret cost information from the letters as well. So when we do get an alert that the costs are different, we try to update that. And also that you can send us error reports within the tool if you think the costs are way off base, and we'll look at it and we'll update them as well.
So definitely want to.
I do see a question here from Sherry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, Sherry, so this really depends. Are most scholarships provided by the college for 4 years as long as they maintain full-time enrollment and good grades? Can students count on that? So this is going to vary based on the type of scholarship they're receiving. And so I do encourage, when working directly with students, that they look into each of the scholarships that are being offered to see what are the requirements for maintaining. And I've seen things such as maintaining a certain GPA, as you mentioned, sometimes even maintaining a certain major. So if they switch majors, they might lose access to that financial aid. Others might be dependent on their financial needs, so their EFC, or soon to be student aid index, staying consistent from 1 year to the next. And as their need changes, that scholarship might shift. And so that's a really important question that students should be looking at when reviewing their financial aid offers, is how long do these scholarships last? I will say, for scholarships from the institution, they're much more likely to last the full time of the degree. For outside scholarships, that's where we see a lot of students run into trouble, where the scholarship is for 1 year or 2 years, and that's helping cover the cost now. But when that scholarship is no longer available, there was no plan in place to cover that remaining gap. And I don't know if there's anything you want to add there.
No, I think you covered it, and it's such an important point. And I think it's something that, again, like award letters don't always make clear. So it's a lot in that sort of interpretation and digging deeper. So covered it. Yeah. Other questions? Anything else in the chat? I can open it up to. And so let's see. I'm just going to open it up here. We had a question about whether it's free. We had a question. Okay. Any other questions, either about the tools or just, general finance? I know that this is, again, crunch time for you all. So any other questions related to this period of financial aid award letter analysis? Okay. Well, I know we're ending a couple of minutes early here. Super grateful for everyone's time today. I'm putting both Brendan and myself contact information. Reach out to us with any questions. We really do hope that these tools can support your work this season and next season and every season beyond, as you're doing this really, really important work with students to help them make these decisions around college enrollment. And Brendan, anything else you want to say to close us out?
I would just add that, as Hannah said, financial aid offer review is often the forgotten, but one of the most important parts of this process. Over my 10 years at uAspire, I've seen so many students who maybe didn't review financial aid offers when that cost comes up for the next year and they hadn't thought about 4 years. Really struggle with that. And we've seen so many students have to change their options. And so it is tough, it is crunch time, but so important to try and ensure students and families are making financially informed college decisions. And whether you use Decided or the college cost calculator, having those conversations is really the most important piece for these students and families as they think about their future options.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of the Affordability Summit, and wishing you a really lovely day. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Hannah and Brennan, for sharing your expertise with all of our participants this morning. Please know that all of the presentation materials are or will be available on the SCED event platform. The recordings will be posted on the CSEC event webpage by tomorrow. We also welcome you to use SCED to provide feedback so we can continue to provide you with the support you need to implement the upcoming application completion requirement. Have a great day, everyone.